I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
All right, greetings and salutations. Right, this Big J here. So, I'm gonna go ahead and wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Something's oh, oh, okay, okay, yeah. Do this. It was acting weird though earlier. I don't know what happened. Um, yeah. So this is part two to my last live stream about Fabius Maximus, right? And how people need to stop using Sun Tzu when they talk about warfare, because Sun Tzu's philosophy when it comes to military strategy and philosophy is a great fallacy, right? It's a great fallacy. So there's somebody to back me up on this, and it's from the U.S. Naval Institute by Major James M. Stevens. This is November 2024. Why hate Sun Tzu? Reevaluate a supposed fundamental fundamental text. And I hate Sun Tzu. Dare I said it? I go on, make your judgment, roll your eyes, and think. Here we go. This is the same guy who dismissed Plato in Philosophy 101 just to be a shocking contrarian. That is admittedly a perfectly reasonable reaction. Let me add some context now that I have your attention. The art of war does not offer bad advice, quite the opposite. It has a profound effect on the 20th century, drew men like Mao Zedong and Volney Clap. I can't pronounce the name. That I think that's the Vietnamese leader. That is unquestioned. The art of war is the definitive work of war in some parts of the world, but not here. The problem with Sun Tzu is twofold. First, the influence of Sun Tzu is widely oversimplified in Western military education, since the art of war is relatively in recent addition to the Western strategic canon. Second, his Confucian philosophy is antithetical to the philosophies that shape American way of war. Ultimately, Sun Tzu is an outsider whose work has limited applicability rather to the Marine Corps. New kid on the block. Sun Tzu is typically covered first when studying the theory of war. This makes sense as he is choreography the earliest great theorist. Yet, his historicity is considered. Sun Tzu is relatively a recent addition. French Jesuits brought the first translation of the art of war to Europe in the late 18th century. But when the art of war entered into the Western zeitgeist is up for the debate. Just because translations were available does not mean they were utilized. B.H. Linton Hart, whose indirect approach bears some similarities to the art of war, was already working on his ideas when he was introduced to Sun Tzu in 1927. It was Marine General Samuel B. Griffin, translation and commentary alongside Miles on guerrilla warfare in 1963, that finally brought the text to the wider attention in the West. Griffin even observes that in his translations, uh, Apex, that despite European dealers having access to the text, they either had little knowledge or regard for it. Sun Tzu did not uh, do not even make the cut for the benefit makers of modern strategy, first released in 1986. Although he did make the cut in 2023 edition. Mediocre translations were certainly a factor in the relative sluggishness of Sun Tzu's acceptance in Europe. However, likely the most significant factor was the lack of foundational texts whose understanding was a requisites for comprehension. Even today, much of the nuance of the art of war is lost on Westerners who are not familiar with Confucian philosophy and Chinese history. Most Westerners are not familiar with their own foundational texts, much less Chinese ones. However, this was not always the case. For centuries, education in Europe was based on medieval model tricon and quadrum, collectively referred to as the liberal arts. This model draw heavily from the Greco-Roman text that formalized education and served as a means of leveling upper class. Classical works were pervasive in the development of modern military theory. Practitioner Wellington and Darius Coswaltz would have equally dread the sentence, and that's in, I think that's in Galidas Oleus Davasas in Potus Trellas. I think that's um, Latin. I think that's in Latin. Intellectually, the Greco-Roman and medieval worlds were far more influential than Sun Tzu would ever hope to be. Now that's a little bit of some chauvinism right there, y'all. But anyway, the overwhelming majority of theorists and practitioners who shape our world had no idea who Sun Tzu was. If studying the evolution of Western strategic theory as developed chronologically, Sun Tzu appears very late. Certainly after Clausewitz and Jomini, the ancient classics, that their medieval linkage are so vast that scholars frequently forgot they are standing on them. Why Sun Tzu does not belong. The Art of War was a subversive text at the time of its collection. War in ancient China had become increasingly hierarchical, with battles serving as opportunities for nobility to display their manliness. Sun Tzu brought pragmatism to war in China. That is precisely the problem. Sun Tzu is the ultimate pragmatist. Winning without fighting is a pragmatic goal, not a moral ideal. Restraint and magnanimity in victory are only necessary when the benefits outweigh the costs. Hold on, let me repeat that again. For the slow person in the back. Okay, for the slow person who's in the back, restraint and magnanimity in victory is only necessary when the benefits outweigh the costs. People are disposable if it means winning. He lets others to do the fighting and the suffering, provided it leads to victory. Everything is available to Sun Tzu. How you win is of no importance as long as you do. Mao and I'm just use Mao. Can't pronounce the other guy's name. Mao won his war, in no small part because they were willing to inflict truly staggering degrees of suffering, not just on their soldiers, but on their own people, safe in the knowledge it was for their own good. Effectively employing the art of war requires the kind of hubris that Icarus would briefly appreciate. But this is where Sun Tzu fails and meaningfully contribute to the American way of war or the Marine Corps war fighting. His common sense advice is just that, common. Sun Tzu is certainly not unique. Homer prepares conflict to water and flower as well. Readers can already learn the value of deception from a wily Odysseus sound campaign preparations from Julius Caesar and strategic foolishness from Gratides. Sun Tzu just reads better on a PowerPoint. What is so distinct to Sun Tzu is his cynical his cynical philosophical underpinnings that are best suited to equal cynical autocrats seeking to create a world more advantageous for themselves. The difference becomes more apparent when it compared directly to the Western intellectual tradition that create the concepts of chivalry and just war. The art of war stresses the importance of the general as a bulwark of the state, an arbiter of fate, which has been the antithetical concept in American history since George Washington. But like Lionel Hart's indirect approach, Sun Tzu's requires healthy degree of sophistry to intellectual sustain. If you properly observe the techniques, then success is all but guaranteed. Failure is result of not following the prescribed techniques. And by this logic, one can argue Alexander applied the indirect approach when he slashed open Gordian knot. Just consider the translation convention. Translation convention of terms like moral law and virtue. Sun Tzu and Thomas Quintus are talking about very different things. Where Sun Tzu advocates moral relative pragmatism, Thomas Quintus acknowledged a moral paradox. War can be both awful and just. Violent men are expected to control themselves with courtly manners. This is not hypocrisy, but the inability to live up to transcendent ideas. Just like Coswalt's acknowledgement that the theoretical total war is impossible. This is why Europe was King Arthur and China has, no, excuse me. This is why Europe has King Arthur and China has Confucius. Science is a handmaiden of philosophy. Therefore, critical, cynical, pragmatic philosophy will produce a cynical, um, pragmatic means of making war. Sun Tzu will be baffled by Western readers' negative reception of the Magellan dialogue as an increasingly imperious Athens threatens a small neutral island of Melos into submission. Obviously, the weak endure what they must, but that is the entire point of being strong. Before the most hardened student of realpolitik, it is hard to make a case that Americans are particularly talented at the strategy advocated by Sun Tzu. It has been attempted, but rarely with lasting success and never with moral justification. When Americans are at peace, Sun Tzu immediately applicable to U.S. foreign policy because pragmatism does not win friends. Two states that actively espouse Sun Tzu will never truly be at peace. Sun Tzu empathized attacking the opponent's strategy. In peacetime, it means undermining the enemy society, since the best way to win without fight is to innocently prepare for war while undermining your adversary. A state that strives to this sort of mentality can have a public policy of no preemptive strikes, yet still launch a surprise attack in the name of defense. Sun Tzu empathized a mental model war versus a physical one. This becomes a truly terrifying when it hybridizes with postmodern materialistic philosophy. The pursuit of gaining and maintaining political power becomes a it becomes a principal goal and an endless pursuit. Sun Tzu is far more applicable to the challenges of international order. Surprisingly, the People's Republic of China has recognized that attacking the opponent's strategy means corrupting their society, which they do through disinformation campaigns on social media, complicity in illicit corporate exploits, eroding trust in global institutions such as the World Health Organization, a state that emphasizes undermining its perceived adversaries' social fabric through deception that will pay a moral cost as words will cease to mean things and trust erodes. Tadanides, I can't pronounce the word, is Greek, should be acknowledged as the intellectual godfather of the Marine Corps. The history of the Philisonian War puts the tragic human cost of war on full display. When war is perceived as easy and convenient, reality quickly dispels this notion as a terrible cost. Society breaks down when pragmatism is ahead of ideas. The fact humans are unable to achieve permanent peace does not make the idea less worthwhile. War should be fought with the intent to create a better state of peace. Wars of pragmatism rarely accomplish this. The True paints an imperfect world which worth living and fighting for. The world of Sun Tzu knows no leisure. Sun Tzu should be studied and comprehended in the same way Mao Little Red Book should be kept handily. No reasonable person could argue about Mao's effectiveness as a leader. He achieved his political objectives and was one of the most quintessential leaders of the 20th century. Yet, this came at the cost of ruthless purges, grinding campaigns, and mass starvations on a scale that most Americans can barely comprehend. The, the, the current generation of the Chinese Communist Party, him in China, and are heirs of that tradition. Whether they appreciate it or not, the Americans are crusaders, brilliant crusaders. Whether crushing insurrections to end slavery or ending terror of a authoritarian dictator, when Americans go to war with ideas and strategic alignment, they get the job done regardless of the cost in blood. Sun Tzu is commonly referenced because it's easily referenced, piddly quotes that apply to everything. The Western classical tradition is most difficult to digest, but offers a much richer understanding of humans in conflict. Thucydides is a hope I finally got that pronunciation right. Thucydides is a grind both textually and spiritually. It should be comprehending war should not be easy or convenient. The works of Homer and Thucydides are are sad. Life is a certainty. Sad life is hard, and war is tragic. But that is only because deep down they understand that it should not be this way. Understand the rage of um, Archides, the despair of Odysseus, or the whole tragedy of the for the war offers a far more realistic view of humanity in conflict because of his longing of a better world that is denied to them. They can only see the silhouettes that are created by a luminous, perfect form. They are formed under the light. Sun Tzu focused on the shadows. Sun Tzu's current place in Western strategic canon is poetic. His introduction is far more recent, yet he's the most recognizable and more often quoted. The West Point Civil War generals fought because of Germany. The Prussian generals fought because of Clausewitz, both of whom are footnotes compared to the influence of Thucydides. Sun Tzu has truly won without fighting. Okay, well, this is the notes, so that's all. I had to finish it up from yesterday's live stream. Um, yeah. Hold on. I ain't read the chat. I ain't read the chat room. So let me go ahead and let's see what's in the chat room. Right. What's going on, Stanley? Hey, Stanley. Stanley, I wanna. How am I insulting the English language when I'm reading Greek or Greek name a Greek word? I ain't that's not insulting the English language because I'm reading a Greek word. Anyway, oh Stanley, say it again, Stanley. Clap my hands at you. I'm gonna give you a round of applause, Stanley. Uh, yeah, cause what you did on Sharon, and I like when you dragged the PH Diva. All right, I like what you did, the PH Diva, because she actually deserved that shit. So let me give you a round of applause again. You know, yeah, man, I give you a round of applause on that. But anyway, I rushed through this live stream. I rushed through it because I forgot to clue that on my last live stream. So I wish some of y'all would stop trying to use the art of war quote. And y'all don't understand what Sun Tzu was conveying. I mean, because Sun Tzu thinks everything is war, right? And yeah, Sun Tzu's not the author of warfare. I don't know why y'all, there are better quotes, and there's people who disprove Sun Tzu's philosophy. So anyway, right. I'm glad, man, you did it, Stanley. I'm glad you did it because somebody has to knock her down a peg or two. You know, uh, and I'm surprised. What's the name? I'm surprised Sharon didn't put you down though. I'm surprised he didn't put you down, put you in the back, or there was a bounty. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if there was a bounty put on you, but I'm glad, man, you last long enough to put that boot in her ass. You know, because I'm really getting tired of her just coming over there just disrespecting people. You know, just coming just disrespecting people, and people really getting tired of that. Seriously. But like I said, she's going to get you know, you know, whether she knows it or not, consequences are going to be made to her though. Consequences going to be made to her. So, yeah. Shit, man, I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired, man. I'm gonna go to sleep. Um, just got off from work, and yeah. Let me get off of here. Yeah, I had to rush through this live stream and read that because I forgot to put that on my last live stream. That's why it's a part two. But anyway, um, I know my reading is not up to par because I'm tired. So anyway, let me get out of here. Y'all be easy, and I'll see y'all next time. I'm out. Y'all have a good one.
I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.